In this video, I am going to look at a home testing solution, a product that I found that allows you to test your soil life. So I'm going to use this. We're going to have a look at the results that it delivers in a couple of different situations. Now, for anyone that follows the channel, you may well know that I run an independent soil testing laboratory. We focus specifically on soil microbiology. So we look at bacteria and fungi in the soil using microscopes and using particular techniques that enable us to quantify soil life. But I thought it'd be quite nice to look at other ways that you can measure soil life. And this might be useful, especially if you grow your own food, you grow your own crops or plants. What is out there that you can use to help you get a measure of exactly what is in your soil? Now, along the way, one of the products that caught my eye is this thing. I ordered it from the States. Wasn't cheap, but ultimately when you divide it out on a test by test basis, it's not too bad. It enables you to test a number of samples fairly cost effectively. It's called the microbiometer, and I'm going to use this in this video to test a few different types of soils, a few different kind of scenarios, and see what results it gives me, what the differences perhaps are between those different scenarios, and what the results mean. Hopefully that will enable the likes of you to decide if this is the right thing for you. Maybe it will complement soil testing you already do. Could it serve perhaps as a replacement for straight laboratory testing? That is what we're going to find out today. So there's three situations that I've selected. We're going to take a sample from my micro vegetable garden that's been in some other videos. We're going to take a sample from a woodland environment, and we'll take a sample from elsewhere, perhaps kind of a grass or field, which we would call permanent pasture. I'm going to collect a sample from each. Now, we're in the middle of winter. We're not expecting a huge amount of kind of microbiology to be active. It is on the downward turn, but soils are still active. If you want to know what effects temperature has on soil activity, then I suggest having a look at my last video, which I'll leave a link to in the description below. But for now, let's get on, let's get the soil samples, and then we will check back in at what I have to do to set these samples up. So I'm ready to collect my samples. I've labelled up my sample bags, one for vegetables, one for the woodlands, one for grassland. In order to sample the soil, I'm going to use like a fruit corer because it's nice and sharp. I only need a small core because I don't need to collect huge amounts of soil. So let's get cracking. So first location, a vegetable garden. Here we go. Second location is this permanent grassland. Okay, so here we are. I've got on my bike and I've cycled to some local woods where I'm going to collect the woodland sample now. Okay, so here we go. I found a nice tree and I'm going to sample from the bottom. In fact, this is really quite cool. I have found the hole from a previous video I did a few months back. It kind of shows how undisturbed this soil is. There we go, lovely. So I've got my samples. I should have said that in between collecting I did actually wash my little corer just to keep things as clean as possible. I have a small portion of soil from each of the three areas. Let's have a look inside the box and see what we've got. So here we go. It's quite a nice hard box, and it's a good size as well. So I imagine this is probably quite good for putting in your car boot if you're out and about and whipping out when you need to do some testing. There's a few bits of paper and card. Now I'll let you into a secret. I have already used this once before, so I have got a bit of an idea. What we have here are some cards which are where we put our final solution from the soil samples on and we scan with the phone. We have a sieve which helps in preparing the samples. It just gets everything down to a fine kind of aggregate. This little thing's quite cool. It's a stirrer. If you watch the end, look, it vibrates. That just helps you stir up things quickly. I've got a load of test tubes here. A syringe, which from memory, I think we cram full of soil. We compact it before we put it in our tube. Then we have the sachets, which kind of contain the chemical reagent. I guess this is the kind of magic bit. It's sodium chloride and calcium chloride solution, which is used for extracting the organisms from the soil. And then we have a pipette. What I'll do, I'm not going to talk you through exactly what I do, because if you're interested in getting one of these, it comes with instructions. It's quite easy to follow, especially with the app. But what I'll do, a quick time lapse of getting the sample set up. So the process of setting up the samples was quite straightforward. It's a little bit of a faff, I must admit, using the sachets and especially trying to cram the soil into the end of the syringe. I didn't actually need to use the sieves, but I can imagine if you've got quite stony or coarse soil, you would. And I think if you don't cram it in properly into the syringe, like there's little air pockets, then you're probably going to have issues with the accuracy of the results, because presumably the biomass that's calculated is based on the volume of soil. But otherwise quite easy to use, straightforward. Let's have a look at the results. Okay, so the timer's gone off for the first sample. I've got a couple of minutes before the second one, which is the grass, is ready, and then I need to prepare the woodland soil, which I will do kind of off camera. But now the alarm's gone, it's been settling for 20 minutes. What we need to do is take our pipette and we do 3 drops on the middle. 1, 2, 3. Squidge that all back. And then I need to go to the app, which I will do here. I'll try and do all this in front. I just need to image the test card. We'll call it vegetable. Oh, perhaps if I spell properly. Only this time. Yeah, there we go. And then, oh, there we go. I have my result. We'll look at them in a minute once I've done all of them together though. So I set up the woodland soil and then I prepared the cards for the other two, the grassland and then the woodland soil. Scanned it with my phone using the app, and now we've got the results. So let's just have a quick look. So these are the results. I've laid them out side by side so you can see vegetable garden, grassland and woods. Now it presents quite a lot of information, some of which you have to actually fill in after you have got the results, and I presume this is just for your own records to kind of record soil type, crop type, things like that as well. But the main bit is at the top here, and this seems to give a figure, total figure for carbon microbial mass, and this is provided in micrograms per gram of the soil. So this is in a similar way to what we might do in my laboratory. We would provide a mass, micrograms per gram of soil for the concentrations of the bacteria and fungi, but we would do that for just the bacteria, and this obviously relates to carbon, microbial carbon in the sample, is my understanding of this. So there's quite a difference between a couple of the samples. Most notably is the vegetable garden, which you can see had quite high levels actually of soil organisms, bacteria and fungi, whereas the grassland and the woodlands are actually fairly similar in the values that they gave. There's very little distinction between the two. Maybe that relates to the fact that they are more natural environments and they're more subject to the climatic conditions. But yeah, some slight variations perhaps, and I'm guessing that one of the influencing factors why there might be so much more bacteria and fungi in my vegetable garden is perhaps because the area from which it was taken was like a raised bed, and that might mean that it's a little bit warmer than the natural soils. The other thing just to note on these is it does provide an organism ratio, so fungal to bacteria ratio, and you can see that the grassland and the woodlands are kind of more in favour of bacteria levels, whereas my vegetable garden actually has pretty good levels of fungi in it. If we look at the last slide, we can see it does give an index figure as to where those levels sit, and my vegetable garden microbial biomass concentrations was excellent. The fungal to bacterial ratio was at the higher end, so I suppose dependent on what I grow, I might want to think about trying to do something about that, although in reality I know from working with soil it's probably easier to let the crop manage that, as if there's good levels of fungi then the plant type will sort that out. Whereas the other two samples, the grassland and the woods, they were all right in terms of microbial concentrations, but the fungal to bacterial ratio seemed to be at the lower end. So overall, some pretty interesting results. I suppose what I might want to know if I was someone that had bought this kit just to test my garden is there a distinction between, or what are the distinctions between this type of test and something in the laboratory? I'd like to understand a little bit more about the carbon, kind of micrograms per gram carbon per sample of soil. I'd like to know more about that. I didn't find anything in the app to describe that a little bit more, but perhaps I should be looking on the website. Otherwise, I thought it was pretty straightforward to use. There are certain limitations like all soil testing, and I think that given that the person taking the sample is ultimately responsible for all stages of this, I think that it's really important that you work in a methodical, accurate way and a consistent way over and over to have consistent and meaningful results that you can use. But otherwise, quite a good kit. I suppose if I was going to use it, I would be interested a little bit more perhaps in retesting in the future and seeing how those results came out. But overall, seems to be a pretty good kit and a good solution to get a fast result, present some meaningful data. The other thing I'd like to do, I think, is perhaps do some benchmarking and see if there is much of a correlation between this and some of the lab testing that we do. Maybe there is, maybe there isn't. There's always differences between particular samples. I did note actually that on the woodlands, I retested the same sample instantly again because I thought that the light levels might have been particularly bad. And I did notice that there were some different readings, which I would perhaps expect, but the variation was upwards of 10%. So again, I'd need to explore that a little bit more to understand, well, what does that really mean? But overall, pretty good. So there we go, that wraps this video up. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found it useful and it helps you to plan ahead and consider what options are available to help you quantify the life in your soil. And this is really important if you're looking to grow healthier, tastier food. Having a bountiful, kind of maximum amount of soil life that's super biodiverse and super active is really key to achieving this. But we'll leave this video here for now. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. If you like videos that show you things about soil, that teach you about soil life and ways that you can utilize it to improve what you're growing, then do consider subscribing to the channel. But for now, we'll leave it there and I will see you in the next video.